Hey, my friends, it's Leah with your Winning Wednesday, WINSDAY, coming to you on a beautiful Wednesday. I hope you're having a wonderfully winning day and a fabulously winning week. I've been teasing this week saying that we are in sprinter because it's one day it's winter, one day it's spring, the next day it's winter again, the next day it's spring again. We don't really know what we're going to have. We've had this last Sunday, we had 70-degree weather, and the very next day it was in the 20s and snowing and just craziness. And then today it was in like about in the 40s, and then it's supposed to be 80 again on Sunday. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? So, anyway, it's been quite a week. We have been talking about worship for the last several weeks, and today we're going to continue with that with a couple of new words that are very similar and mean very similarly the same things. And so let's talk about what we were talking about last week real quickly as a recap. We talked about the Hebrew word halal, and that is describing demonstrative worship. So it's making a lot of noise. It's singing and clapping and shouting and dancing and playing all the instruments and just making a lot of joyful sound unto the Lord for our worship. So it's all of those things. And as a matter of fact, it's talking about doing it in such a way that you don't care how foolish you look when you do it, because you know that God is worthy of your worship. And so you're going to worship him with all that you are, and you're going to make a lot of noise doing it. So it's being clamorous. It's just worshiping noisily, worshiping to the Lord with great celebration, worshiping the Lord no matter how foolish we might appear to someone else. And the truth is, when you think about what we did Sunday, we baptized 5 people Sunday, 5 people who are believers in Jesus, who have said, I want to make a public profession of what is going on inside of me. I want to tell the world what Jesus has done in my life, what has happened to me. And so by doing that, they are making this big celebration. And there was a lot of clapping and a lot of amens and a lot of yes and wonderful and yeah, just all of that stuff. And so that's what that word is all about. So God is worthy of this kind of raving, celebratory worship, because when we love him madly, when we are truly madly in love with him, we will tell him and show him by the way we offer our praise and our worship to him. And that's what this is talking about. So today's word is a near opposite of that loud worship. And both kinds of worship are to be performed in complete reverence. So whether you are being loud and celebratory, you still are doing it in a reverence and in awe of who God is. You still have that going on, because it is important for us to realize who God is and to celebrate him for who he is, and to be in awe of the truth of that as individuals and as corporate bodies. And so both kinds of worship are to be performed in complete reverence and awe of the one to whom it is offered. And so today I want to read from Psalm chapter 95. And again, we find a lot of these words of worship in the Psalms. And so that's why we're going to spend some time there. I told you last week that we were going to read, I believe it was Psalm 148, but I changed my mind as I was doing this, and I would rather read Psalm 95 today, because it goes along with what we're talking about. Although it talks about the first word, halal, the first portion of this. So let's look at this, Psalm 95. And we're going to read the first 9 verses of it. It says, "Oh, come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make a joyful noise to him with songs of praise. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth. The heights of the mountains are his also. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker, for he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today, if you hear his voice, Do not harden your hearts as at Meribah, as on the day of Massah in the wilderness, when your fathers put me to the test and put me to the proof, though they had seen my work. So let's end there. And let's talk about this first part. He says, oh, come, let us sing to the Lord. Let us make joyful noise. So he talks about those first few verses. Make a joyful noise. Let's sing, because God is a great God. He's above all gods. And so we're celebrating that in this. He says, come, I want you to join with me and worship him. So that's what that part is. And then in verse 6, he changes the way that he worships. And that is when he says, oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. So let's talk about that today. In this particular psalm, we read that God is the creator of all things, and as we think about this, think about who God is. God is the creator of all things, of everything that we see and everything that we cannot see with our perception, with our eyes. God is the one true and living God. He is the one who sees me, who hears me, who knows and understands me. God knows every detail of my life, yet he chooses to pour his love upon me. Think about that. Think about the awesomeness of that. He chooses to pour his love upon me and offers me his grace and showers me with his mercy. God cares for me and provides for my every need. So this is who God is. He's all of these things and so much more. He is everything that we can possibly imagine and more than we could ever imagine. Because God is all this and more than we could ever imagine. He is worthy of us worshiping him with complete abandon. And that's what we talked about yesterday. And he is, or not yesterday, last week. And he is worthy of all our wonderment of who he is, our reverent awe of his identity, of God. God is worthy of our barak and our kara. So those are two words that talk about kneeling before the Lord. Today's words about worship is all about kneeling before God in submission to his authority. And it means to bless God. It means in an act of adoration of him. To barak for a person is, or barak for a person is offering congratulations to them, maybe on their position, and just saying, I recognize your position. And that's what that's talking about when you're talking about it with a person. That's one way of looking at it. For God, it is to greet him with submissive surrender and physically to kneel before him. So it's to actually kneel, take a knee and kneel before him. That's what this word is talking about. God even used this word when he was talking to Abram. He was speaking over Abraham and he was speaking blessing over him. And when he stated that he would bless him in Genesis chapter 12, the meaning of that was that Abraham, or Abram at that time, would benefit from his relationship with in this covenant with God. So it was going to be a benefit to Abram to be in covenant with God. And God was speaking this blessing over him and using this word as saying it was a greeting to him and saying there's a mutual benefit here to you to be in covenant with me. That's what God was saying to him. So these words are, the first word, barak, is talking about a salutation or a greeting. That's one of the meanings of it. And in both of these, they are both talking about submission or subjugation, bowing in repentance and bowing in worship. So that's what we're talking about today. So as we move toward Resurrection Sunday, we are moved by, whoops, I bumped the table. We are moved by the solemnness of the occasion. Think about what Jesus did. Jesus chose to leave his place in glory and to come to earth as a baby. So he left that place and he came to earth and he was born of a woman just like everyone else is. And Jesus is the only, when you remember several years ago, there was a movie called Avatar, And we talk about avatars online and things like that. But Jesus is the only actual and real avatar. He is God come to earth to dwell among people. That's what he did. And Jesus lived on the earth, and he grew up and he learned and he grew stronger. And the Bible tells us that he grew in wisdom and in stature. And so he did all of these things. He grew just like a regular child because he was fully human, but he was also fully divine. And we receive that by faith and understand the truth of that when we look at the way he lived. He went through all the established rituals and ceremonies that were prescribed in the Jewish faith. He was educated in the synagogues. He became an adult, and he began his work of ministry by being baptized by his relative John. Remember, Mary and Elizabeth were relatives, and therefore their children were relatives. So John and Jesus were related to one another. And John baptized Jesus, and at that time, we see Jesus the Son in being baptized. The Holy Spirit comes down, descends upon him like in the form of a dove, and God the Father speaks over him. So that's a picture of the Trinity for us. And so he did this and was baptized by John, and then he was tempted in all points just like we are. He was tempted in every way, in the same way that we are. But Jesus overcame every temptation. He did not sin. He lived a sinless life. And that is how we know he is who he claimed to be, because none of us can say that we have done that. Nobody is sinless except Jesus. So he was tempted in all points, just as we are, yet he did not sin. He performed many miracles, and we're told about all of these in the scriptures. And John tells us that he did so many things, there is not enough space. There aren't enough books. There's not enough paper to write it down. There's no way that we can tell you everything that Jesus did while he lived on the earth. And so we're given all the things in the scriptures that would help us to be able to understand the reality of who Jesus is. We have enough to know that it's true. And so that's what John was getting at. We understand that he is truly the promised Messiah. And so that's what this is talking about, this all of these things when I'm talking about who Jesus is. Jesus was then betrayed by a friend. How many of us have ever experienced that? Probably most of us have experienced that in one level or another, being betrayed by someone that we trusted. And Jesus was betrayed by Judas. And it was another pain in his life. Jesus spent the entire night, that night that he was betrayed, being moved from one court of hearing to another. So he was moved among the Sanhedrin and Pilate, and just kept going back and forth. And he appeared in four different times. He appeared before another hearing and another hearing. And so finally, Jesus was sentenced without any deceit or fault found in him. Jesus, the sinless one, was sentenced to die on a Roman cross. What a cruel death he was given. What a cruel sentence. And so he suffered extreme agony. He suffered extreme humiliation. He suffered excruciating pain. And as a matter of fact, that word excruciating is derived from the root from crucifixion. Excruciating happens to come from the very word crucifixion, because that's the kind of pain that it was. It was so bad. Jesus took all of these things upon himself and bore them so that we would not have to. That was the whole reason. He took on our iniquities and transgressions so we could be cleansed. He took on our pain through beatings and scourging and thorns on his head and stripes on his back so we could be healed. He took our punishment so we could have peace. Jesus did all of these things on our behalf. Jesus chose the moment he died and gave up his spirit. No one else killed him. Jesus laid down his life by choice, and he talked about that. He said, I have the authority to do this, to lay my life down and to pick it up again, because my Father has given me that authority. And so he laid his life down by choice. Jesus was then buried in the tomb, and he was buried for 3 days. And then he rose again. He was resurrected. He appeared to many after after he was resurrected in his resurrected body. He commissioned his disciples, and then he ascended to heaven and is now seated at the right hand of God the Father, interceding on behalf of people. And Jesus, in all of these things, is our salvation. So when you think about all of these things that Easter is to us, Resurrection Sunday is what it really is. That's what we're celebrating. Isn't the Lord worthy of every bit of reverent awe that we have? Isn't he worthy of that for suffering through all of these things on our behalf, leaving his place of glory and coming to do all of this so that we don't have to? He's worthy, y'all. He's worthy. Isn't kneeling before him in submissive surrender the most appropriate thing that we could possibly do? God designed this whole thing for his people that he created. Every time, and I've shared this many times, but every time I kneel to pray, I mean every time, without fail, every time I kneel to pray, I am overwhelmed by the fact that God invites me into his presence. You know, I said earlier, God chooses to love us even though he knows everything about us. He chooses to love us, and he chooses to offer salvation to us. He chooses to allow us to access his grace. And he chooses to be merciful toward us and not punish us the way we really deserve to be punished. So isn't he worthy of kneeling before him? When I kneel down and pray, it truly does overwhelm me. He provided the way back to God. God provided the way back to right relationship with himself through Jesus, through everything that Jesus suffered through. And he invites me into his presence. He allows me to experience his presence, and he works in every area of my life. And I can see his hand at work. When I start looking for his hand at work, I start seeing it because I'm paying attention. It's not that he never leaves us. He never forsakes us. He never goes away. He is always at work in our lives. But sometimes we forget to watch. And when we start paying attention and we begin to watch for him, he begins to reveal those things that he's doing in our lives. The more I pursue him, the closer I draw to him by reading and studying his word and spending time in communion with him, talking with him, just going to him in prayer, and not just leaving a laundry list of things that I want from him, but coming to him to truly commune with him, to spend time with him, to just worship him, and then wait on him. And when we do that, when I spend time doing that, I'm just overwhelmed by his presence. And I just go, God, you are worthy of my praise. You're worthy of my worship. And you are worthy of me kneeling at your feet and submitting myself to you in full and complete surrender, just surrendering my life to you in every way, every area of my life. You are worthy of all of that. He is worthy of our submissive surrender. You know, James tells us that when we submit ourselves to him and when we draw near to him, that God draws near to us. God doesn't hide from us. He wants to be known by us. And I think that is really good news. So I hope that you will join with me as we worship him in awe and reverence, that you will just kneel before him and just go, God, you are worthy of my submission. You are worthy of me surrendering to you, because look at what you've done. You loved me first, and now I can love you back because you loved me, and I can love people around me because you love me. He is worthy of our submissive surrender, and he is worthy of our loud, noisy, celebratory praise. He's worthy of it all. And I know that this is a good word for all of us as we go into this Resurrection Sunday weekend and just celebrate who God is and who we are because of Him and through the work of Jesus at the cross. I hope this is a good word for you. It's been a good word for me. Barak, and what was that other one? I always forget how to pronounce it. Let me look at it one more time because I'm going to say it wrong if I don't. But it's Barak and Kara. And those are words that are talking about kneeling before the Lord, our Maker. Come, let us worship and bow down and kneel before the Lord, our Maker. What a great word for us. I hope this has been a good word for you, a word that inspires you to worship the Lord with all that you are in every way, in kneeling before Him in reverent awe and in celebratory praise because of all that He has done in your life. I hope you have a wonderfully winning day, a fabulously winning week, and I will see you this weekend. I hope that you will make plans to join us. We will be meeting Sunday morning at 10 o'clock for Sunday school. We'll be meeting at 11 o'clock for our worship service. If you are in the Wellington area, we would love for you to join us. We are going to be doing some fun things. Our teens and our kids are going to be singing in our service, and I'm really looking forward to that. It's going to be a great day in the Lord to celebrate. We're going to be probably doing a lot of loud celebrating on Sunday because He is worthy of it all. So I hope you'll join us there. We meet at 1000 Emerald Street in Wellington. And if you cannot be in the Wellington area, I hope you'll join us online. We will meet here on this Facebook page. So join us then. It's 11 o'clock Central Time. And for those of you who are in Wellington and want to join us tonight, we are at 1000 Emerald Street. 6 o'clock, we'll be meeting with our children, our youth, and our ladies' Bible study. And so we are starting a new Bible study tonight. Ray Jones is going to be leading that. And so we're really excited about that. So I hope you'll join us for that. Have a great week, a wonderfully winning Wednesday, a fabulously winning week. And I will see you either tonight or I will see you on Sunday. Have a great week. See you then.